afternoon. You're listening to the CFAX Pet Line, brought to you by Pets West. If you'd like to join the program, call 250-386-1161 or star 1070 on your cell. Now here's your host, Jennifer Shaw.
Thank you, TJ. Good afternoon to everyone, and thank you for tuning into the CFAX Pet Line on this Sunday afternoon. And today we have a special treat for our listeners. We are going to open up the phone lines to you with any questions that you may have about dog training and behavior, but we are going to have a special twist on it today because we're going to be talking all about dog training for women. And this is something that might be a foreign concept to some of our listeners, and we're going to learn all about dog training for women as I'm joined on the phone lines today by Camilla Gray-Nelson. She is the Dog Talk Diva. And so I'd like to welcome you to the show. Good afternoon, Camilla. Thank you so much for joining us.
It's my pleasure, Jennifer. Thanks.
Now, tell us, how did you get the name the Dog Talk Diva?
Well, I suppose I gave it to myself, really honest. But over the years, I have developed a specialty, I think, in helping women train their dogs. Now, by way of background, I've been professionally training dogs for over 20 years. And of course, men and women and dogs. But what I find, and this is backed up by some research I actually did, 3 out of 4 households, at least in the United States, leave the training of the dog and the management of the dog to the woman of the house.
Absolutely.
So what I found was women had particular obstacles, I guess you put it, in getting their dog to take them seriously, obey them, and they had a lot on their plate with the kids and the house and the dog, oh my. And so I really sort of, you know how life just sort of takes its turn. I didn't set out to become an expert in empowering women with their dogs, but it just sort of happened over the years.
Well, I love this because you're absolutely right. Definitely, I would say 80% of the calls that us dog trainers get seem to be from women. And so often you hear the comment, oh, yeah, well, my husband picked the dog out. The breed was his decision, but now I'm the one who's left taking care of the dog. And so it's funny how sometimes the selection process might be it tends to be the man's role, but then all of a sudden when it comes to the day-to-day care and the training and everything like that, it does tend to fall to the women of the household so often.
Yep, when the rubber meets the road, there we are.
Well, I would love to, a lot of people might say, well, come on, what's the difference between, a man training a dog and a woman training a dog? But let's look at it from the dog's perspective. How does the dog see the woman of the household?
Well, that's a really good way to phrase this discussion, Jennifer. Thanks. Because it really does start with the dog. The dog in their culture, honestly, their leader is always male.
Yes.
In a large dog pack, the top dog is always a male. So really when a dog is expecting a male leader, and really they're expecting a male leader, and a woman shows up and tries to tell them what to do, the first thing the dog says is, why should I? Who are you? And because women, they do recognize the sexes. I mean, they recognize female versus male, cross species. I mean, they recognize that we are women. We're not as tall. We have higher voices. We don't smell the same. We're not as strong. So we don't have sort of those natural assets, if you will, going for us from the get-go. And remember, dogs talk non-verbally. They don't use reason and logic and words. They're just going on what they see. And so from the get-go, women are at a disadvantage with their dog. So they need to pull on leadership skills that do not rely on strength or physical size.
Very good. Well, we are going to take a quick commercial break, but when we come back, we are going to talk about what we do have to go rely on and how we can better manage our canine household. And if you have any questions about your dog's training or behavior, man or woman, we're not discriminating here. So if there are men out there with questions, we're opening up the phone lines to you as well. But if you have any questions about dog training and care today, the number number to call, as always, 250-386-1161 or star 1070 on your cell phone as we come back with more on the CFAX Petline with the Dog Talk Diva today. Camilla Gray-Nelson right back on the CFAX Petline. My guest today is Camilla Gray-Nelson. She is the Dog Talk Diva, and today we are talking all about dog training and behavior for dogs that are owned by both men and women, but we're specializing our conversation a little bit today towards women and dogs because, Camilla, as you mentioned, we don't have the deep voice. We don't maybe have the natural respect. I think that the dogs maybe have missed a little of the political correctness here.
They're not politically correct.
No, they are not at all. So
how refreshing.
Yes, so we don't have that going for us. What do we have going for us?
Well, we have skills that we can actually, if we don't have them naturally, we can hone them because we all have a little seed of this. We have patience. Some of us are better at that than others. Patience, we have empathy, meaning we can read our dogs, and we're not impatient to make a quick judgment. Why is this dog not obeying me? A lot of it is in figuring out why. There's two reasons that dogs don't mind you, don't do what you say. They're either defying you, or they're confused. And how unfair would it be to go on the assumption that your dog was being defiant when he really didn't know what you were talking about? And, we can be really good at that as women.
Yes.
So really developing our empathetic side, dealing with our patience, not being trigger happy on, getting even or correcting. Just take your time. Treating them sort of like our 2-year-old children. And yet, just as with children, boundaries are all important. And here's what a dog's looking for. I find, and this is my background of growing up, not just with dogs, but I've grown up on a farm, and I always say I grew up with animals, not pets.
Yes.
Animals, not pets. And that's a very important distinction because I watched how all the animals on our farm, the cows, the horses, the dogs, as social mammals, as are we, by the way, sorted out the leaders and the followers. And it was never, rarely was there ever a fight. But there were clear boundary setters, calm, effective, setting the rules and enforcing them, but without getting upset, without being intimidated, without being aggressive. They were clearly known as the leaders. And so a dog is looking for someone to say, I set the boundaries, and here are yours.
And that consistency.
And it isn't a boundary unless it's a consistent boundary.
Yes.
That's right.
And I think sometimes women are better at being consistent sometimes than men. Don't you find the men that will roughhouse with the dog 1 minute and then next minute they're upset because the dog has just knocked somebody over?
Oh, you hit it right on the head. It's the two ends of the spectrum. No control, and then really mad because there's no control.
Yes.
Yeah. So women have that. We have it in us. But here's what women do. And I don't mean to stereotype, and I'm not being politically correct here, but sorry, but neither are dogs. Okay.
Yes.
What women tend to do is there's two big things. Well, there's more than that, but I'm gonna focus on two. They tend to get emotional, upset, frustrated, and as a result, raise their voice and act mad when they can't get their dog to listen to them, obey them, or stop doing something. The problem with that is, number one, you're trying to be a man, and you're not a man.
Yes.
The dog knows it. But the real reason that that's such a problem is because in the animal world, the leaders are not the bullies, and the leaders are not the fighters. The leaders are calm, effective rule setters. And so when a dog sees us yell, get frustrated, or even sound mildly pissy,
yes,
the dog goes, well, you can't be a leader at all. You're an imposter. I will ignore you because you're an imposter. A real leader is never upset. You see?
Easier said than done, though.
Oh, so difficult to do. But it is the secret. It is nature's secret of power and influence. It's that, my favorite phrase when I'm talking and teaching my classes to dog owners on Saturdays and during the week, my favorite phrase is, my serenity is my power.
Okay. So how do we put all of this into play in day-to-day life? Because the problem is, our dogs aren't just seeing us for 1 hour a day when we can put on our, we can get the serenity over us and we can put on the right face. They catch us at all times when we might be frustrated with the 2-year-old at the same time. So, what can we do to get more respect from our dogs on a day-to-day basis?
Well, I think organizing your day with your dog is important, and thank goodness dogs do not have a concept of time.
Yes.
So, the most practical advice I can give to busy women is when you have those periods of time during the day that things are just going a mile a minute, out of control, the kids just got home from school and you're fixing dinner, crate your dog.
Yes.
Put your dog away. The dog just knows you for the person you are when you are together. And it's better to be together with your dog under the right controlling circumstances for 3 hours a day than it is to be with him 8 hours a day out of control.
Yes. Now, I 100% completely agree with that. But for people that are not as familiar with dogs, they hear crate your dog, and that sounds, that sounds severe in some way. So let's clarify what a crate is, how it should be used, and how the dog sees this. Because I think some people are turned off by crates sometimes. I talk about it all the time on the show, but I still think there's a negative association with them, and there shouldn't be.
Again, going back to nature herself, that's the point from which all of my training advice comes from. Nature herself. Dogs in their natural state, before we plucked them from their society and plopped them into ours, but didn't change their DNA, by the way.
Yes, of course.
They lived... Their safety was their dog den. Mm-hmm. Now, for someone who's never seen a dog den, let me tell you what a den looks like. A den is a really small area, probably not much bigger than the dog itself, maybe dug out underneath the root of a tree or a trunk or a rock, where the dog can slither in, turn around, and lie down, and is protected on 3 sides and just sees out the front. And when a dog is in this small, enclosed containment, they relax because that's their natural source of protection and safety. And so when we crate train a dog, of course, dogs don't like anything that they're not familiar with. I mean, they're creatures of habit. Of course, the first time you put a puppy in a crate, if he's never been in a crate, he'll say, with his yapping and barking and howling a little bit for a few hours, "What is this? I'm confused. What is this? I'm confused." But if you just give him time, do it consistently, like you said, the dog, almost without exception, You'll be looking around your house for your dog, and you won't see where he is, and you'll look and, oh, there he is. He voluntarily went into his crate for a nap. They love their crates. They settle down in their crates. So crates become, and that brings up the whole subject of the big picture of living successfully with a dog is not just about training. It's about management and training.
Yes.
How you manage your dog's world. Because we are their supervisors and their guardians. Again, they don't know the human world. We're responsible for them to navigate life in the human world. And part of that is learning how to manage your dog, where your dog's allowed to go when you're at work.
Yes.
I'm a great fan, as much as I'm a fan of crates, for anything less than 4 hours. anything more than 4 hours, I'm a fan of dog runs, especially for the medium to larger size dogs. Certainly, if you're gone all day and you have a little tiny dog, it may not be safe or healthy, especially up where you are, where it gets colder than here in California, to leave a dog outside in a dog run. But an indoor-outdoor run for a bigger dog is great, or just a little X-Pan in your garage or your house with teach them to go on, the wee-wee pads. But some sort of confinement that allows the dog a little space to stretch his legs and do his business is much preferable than leaving a dog home alone in the house. And I can talk about freedom and the problems that causes with dogs, too.
Yes, I definitely want us to talk about that during the show as well, because it is something that separation anxiety seems to be such a big thing lately, and I'm sure you'll agree that sometimes has to do with a little bit too much freedom as well. So we're going to talk about all of those things and more, as well as any behavior problems that you might be having with your dog or dog training questions. The number to call, as always, 250-386-1161, as we come back with more on the CFAX Pet Line right after this. We are back on the CFAX Pet Line. My guest today is Camilla Gray-Nelson. She is the Dog Talk Diva, and we are talking all about dog training and behavior, and specifically about how women of the household can get a little bit more respect from their dogs. And you've had some great suggestions so far, Camilla, about, staying serene and the benefits of crate training in a crazy household. But what are a few of the things to maybe avoid as women to make sure that we're doing the best that we can for our dogs?
Well, we talked a little bit earlier about avoiding any raising of the voice or sounding frustrated, because that doesn't ring true to a dog as a true leader.
Yes.
The other thing that women do so much of, and I hate to pick on you women, sorry, but I am one, so I can say this.
That's right.
Handy. Is accommodating. Now, let me explain this a little bit. Accommodation is about giving in to your dog's every whim. Now, we do that as a sign of love. But in the dog world, the dog that accommodates another is the subordinate dog. And if you are seen as subordinate to your dog, or lower in the power scale in the dog family, they won't listen to you. They won't take you seriously, because dogs follow strength, not weakness.
So give us an example of how we might do how we might give in to our dog throughout the day.
Well, there's some really simple things. If you have a little dog, like a little Shih Tzu,
yes,
right, on your lap, and the dog wants to get off your lap, most people say, "Oh, you have to get off my lap. You don't want to be on there anymore." What I would do is I'd hold on to that dog just a little bit longer till the dog stops trying to get off. And then I would put them on the floor when it was my idea. You see how subtle that is?
Yes.
Or, let's say your dog's on the sofa, right? And needs more room. So you move over to give the dog more room. Or you've asked the dog to lie down and your feet are in the way. Do you step out of the way for the dog, or do you let him figure out where to lie down? It's little things like that throughout the day that at the end of the day, the dog sums it all up and says, who has the power in this relationship?
Yes. And those are such little things that we would never give second thought to. But they make such a big difference to the dog.
The dog is reading every move throughout the day, and he's keeping score. Trust me.
Yes, and it's so natural for us to want to try to avoid conflict, that I don't want to get into it right now, and just give in, even, on more serious levels. But we certainly, we want to be very careful of that.
That's right. And so many times I query women about, why don't you set a boundary here? Why don't you stop your dog from doing this? I want him to like me.
Oh, no.
And the irony of that is that by accommodating and acting weak, your dog is disdaining you.
Exactly.
The stronger you are with the dog in a calm, loving way, but the stronger you are in terms of control, the more the dog adores you. That's the irony, isn't it?
I know.